The strange thing of jumping from a multi-storey car park, then waking up alive and coming home and it's just right, you need to get a job and basically start the treadmill of what you were on before again. The 4 days were really like how I managed to identify how life was going, because the days seemed to be getting worse and worse, and each day I was waking up and just kind of finding that I was having different feelings, and I managed to get it down to basically 4 separate days that there were. A thought jumps in, you try and knock it down by justifying it, then another one comes in, and it's just such a constant thing that it's kind of, I'm full now, I've had enough. As far as my brother's concerned, I would have thought that he lived the vast majority of his life on a sort of car day, kind of risk-taking, you know, I don't care what happens to me today, and augmenting that in many different things by the way that he lived his life. It came about as a car day because those feelings always happen when you were driving. I think the feeling of driving was really a feeling of kind of escape, and it was an escape from the world entirely. All you're hoping is the whole time that there's some sort of accident or some sort of crash which you're involved in, which basically does enough damage or impact or causes you to swerve whereby you lose control of the car, and eventually you find yourself driving around roads and actually looking for areas whereby, you know, if my car went over the edge of there, would it do enough damage to sort of write off the car and write off me permanently, and actually sort of taking almost practice runs, so kind of reversing up on country lanes and thinking, well, if I hit the fence at that particular point, I'll manage to get over there, and then there's a drop of 40 feet or something like that, and the first thing or the last thing that you think about is just pushing the seatbelt and letting it come loose. The vast majority of people would think a bit panicky means the sort of nerves that you might get before a job interview or before you go on a plane. It's all consuming where you're trapped. This is why I kind of want to raise awareness of it all, because I think we're miles away from being able to ring into work and actually say, you know, I'm anxious, I'm scared, I'm worried, I cannot come in, and somebody saying, you know, that's absolutely fine. So we have to fake it instead, and we have to say we've got a cold and put on a croaky voice and all that type of thing. People, because they don't understand it, will have an attitude of, well, you know, everybody has it tough sometimes, get on with it, you know, get on with life and just force yourself to do this. But it isn't like that. You you can't just force yourself to do it. It's all consuming. It just entirely takes over you. A nothing day is preferable to a car day or a panic day, in that you wake up and your first overwhelming feeling is nothing. So you don't feel anxiety, you don't feel panicked about anything, you don't feel like the world's ending in any way. But similarly, you don't feel anything about the world, you just feel completely nothing, impartial. It's happening around you. Because you don't feel like you're connecting with the world, you don't feel like there's anything that you particularly want to do. So you find you might lay down and try and read for a bit, and then that fails. So you might try and watch TV for a bit, but that's just passing on by without you really understanding that it's happening, and you're not really participating with any of the world. It's just happening around you. To me, almost it feels like a something day is how most people usually live their days. So it's not so much that you've got extra feelings, it's that those other feelings aren't there, which is a good thing in itself. It kind of gives you that bounce that you actually do want to get on with things, and you don't want to be sort of by yourself. So, and in those times, I mean, I'm sure my friends would kind of testify, I'll probably go missing for 2 months for a while. And then when those times come, it's kind of, right, I'll start making arrangements, I'll start doing these things, start seeing people. Once I got into writing, started writing, although I got a lucky break as far as getting a book published is concerned, it really wasn't about that. It was more about how it made me feel actually doing it. And I was doing something positive for a change, and that was sort of bringing out all of these feelings. And I'm sure writing's not for everybody, but there is something for everybody which will help them, make a change and sort of come out of that, really. So it wasn't a conscious management, it was just a case of, as I did it, I felt that I was actually moving forwards. I wasn't just stuck in this same rut, and it was a tiny little change which has then grown and grown and become something that's become more normal, I suppose, now. The strange thing of jumping from a multi-storey car park, then waking up alive and coming home, and it's just, right, you need to get a job and basically start the treadmill of what you were on before again. All I knew of it really was being woken up about 5 o'clock in the morning by my parents, who sort of came in and sat on the edge of the bed and sort of shook us and woke us up and sort of said, "Oh, Simon," that was my brother, "has had this accident." And that was it. We were told that, and then that was it. And we're all going to hospital later to sort of visit him. And he got better, certainly physically. He walked with a limp and stuff, and he didn't just sink into sort of normality then. What he did then was got involved in stealing cars and stuff like that, went to prison. I mean, in my opinion, he was looking to find something in life, and with not talking about it and not trying to get the right help and never admitting there was any sort of problem, even though I must have discussed it with him 100 times, we never really got anywhere.
Rumored to been buried alive. Can this be a surprise? I'll meet you inside.
The church was absolutely packed. There were people outside, and hundreds and hundreds came, and you kind of just stood there just thinking, if you could see all of this now, if you could see that these were all the people who cared about you who have come to this, then we won't be in this sort of position now. And that it's one of those things I think that just sticks with you forever.
Blown away by 861. Her test of metal just barely begun. Those who appoint her trustees got down on their knees.
These 4 types of days is exactly what life is like or has been like, and I wanted to put that out there to sort of say, look, it might be a novel, this, but this is not sort of made up stuff. This is how life has been like. So I wanted to really sort of lay all my cards on the table, and I thought the best way to get to the most people would be just to say, right, let's write a completely open book about this subject and say to basically whoever wants to read it, this is what life has been like.
Crooked, but got the herd. Survive this year of Saturn return.
Each day when we wake up, or each part of the day, we find that life around us is continuing as it always did. Everything's normal. It's just how we're perceiving that particular day. So the feelings that we're experiencing, how low we can get at certain times. Nothing in our lives are changing at all. And in fact, a lot of things are moving and are moving in a positive way. And it's just the way that we're looking at the world.
Pour me a drink. Let me explain the wallpaper. It's not impossible to translate this dream.
Let's not have sort of people's viewpoint being marred by all this stuff in the past of, this crazy mental institution and that person suffering from depression. Let's stay away from them, Let's get everybody talking about it, everybody understanding that it's simply an illness. It's just like any other illness. It's just we don't understand it because it's in the brain. And as we don't understand the brain, it makes it quite difficult to sort of repair that thing. So anything that's physical we can just about fix nowadays, but let's move on and sort of get mental health up to that same level that curing physical illnesses is.
Just press record. We'll cover mistakes with harmonies. It's not impossible to sing what you mean.
This is an illness that actually makes you decide that you want to take your own life, which is such a huge chemical imbalance. And there's so many factors within there, whether it be upbringing or genetics or surroundings and all of those things. But it's all fixable because, every day isn't the same. And if we can just take tiny steps, whatever it may be, a bit of talking one day or just things that bring that little bit of joy, then they all build on top of one another and they all assist. And ultimately, as an individual and as a society overall, we can get better at talking about it and generally better at understanding mental health issues. So we get to a stage where, people, it isn't the second biggest killer of males in their 40s. It isn't affecting 1 in 3 people. And if it is, then we're so much better equipped to deal with it because we all talk about it. And the thing that makes us get into those lowest situations is that we feel lost and there's only us who feels like that. And that's what needs to change.
I'll need about 3